Yeah.
So my background, actually, sports has been part of my life all during my life. I played sports growing up. I played volleyball, basketball, ran track, rode horses competitively. But basketball was my main sport of choice that I had dreams and aspirations of playing in the pros with. Unfortunately, I blew my knee out, tore my ACL 3 times. So that derailed that. But I still didn't really know that I wanted to be a publicist or a brand manager for athletes. I had kind of wanted to go into the medical side of sports. Then I realized to be a physician, you have to go to school for a very long time. And that really wasn't for me. So that's when I kind of peeled it back to journalism, broadcasting, communications. And then it was actually when I was playing women's professional football that I started working with the publicist that we had for our team, and thought that it was really interesting, different things that she was able to do for her clients. And me having friends and acquaintances that I knew were in professional sports that also had publicists, those people weren't doing that for them, or their agents weren't really giving them enough attention outside of just negotiating their contract, and maybe negotiating the 1 or 2 big brand deals that all athletes get, whether that's with Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, they all sign on, most of them. And I just felt like there was a way for me to bring what I knew from being an athlete, knowing different things that athletes might think about off the field, things that they might worry about. A lot of athletes are real interested in giving back to their communities, but not a lot of people know how to help them do that or are willing to work with them and do that. So I just saw a need for more people like me and the lady who was helping me, that for what we do in sports. So I started learning from her. I started working with her, interned with her. I worked with her for almost 5 years, and then ended up branching out on my own. And she fully supported that. She was kind of backing away from the business at the time. She was getting older, and she fully supported that. So now here I am.
When you play football, did you like getting hit, or do you like hitting people?
Well, first of all, did I like getting hit? You have to catch me to hit me. So that's one. I didn't really get hit.
Well, so you think you're fast, or you used to be fast?
Probably it used to be before all the knee problems. I'm not that fast anymore. I be pretty fast. I was pretty fast when I ran track. And I was a pretty good wide receiver playing football. As any of my past coaches will tell you, I have better hands than some guys in the league.
Hey, that's good to know.
I doubt it, but no, it was fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
And then you obviously you played basketball, so you loved doing that. And then you rode horses too?
I did. I rode horses competitively since I was about 6 years old, and did it all the way up through high school till I was about 17, 18. And the only reason I stopped was because I had my first knee injury, and after tearing both ACLs, it got a little bit more difficult to ride. It was just more uncomfortable with my knee problems. So that's really the only reason why I stopped.
Yeah, that makes sense. Talk about what you're seeing now in the world of sports, what may be going on, what may not be going on, and anything. I've always said, since all of this started, I think golf was the only safe sport to do that I can recall. I can't think of really anything else, you know. What would be your point of view on all of that right now?
Well, you know, it's tricky because I see a need for us to be careful as a society with this virus. We don't know all there is to know about it. We don't know what exactly can contain it or not contain it. And I know that there is a need for sports. Sports very much can bring the world together and together. And I understand that, and I understand the urgency for wanting to get back to it as soon as possible. However, yeah, like you said, most sports that you have are contact in some way with another person. And other than golf, it's really hard to not be in close proximity with someone else. That being said, they've set all these rules. For example, in the NFL right now, yeah, they want guys to get tested before they go into camp. You've got to have so many negatives before you go into camp. Okay, so let's say they get their 3 negatives, right? And everybody gets tested, everybody goes into camp. What happens if, because we've been told that this virus can live on surfaces, we've been told it can travel in the air, all these different things. So what happens when the food that's brought in for the athletes, or the water bottles, or the Gatorade, or something that's coming from the outside that just might have this virus on the surface? What happens if that gets unleashed? And
I didn't even think about that. That makes a lot of sense. I had no idea.
Yeah, there's all these different factors. There's no way to perfectly keep it, on the outside, or keep everyone from getting it. So, there's a lot of players that are opting out of playing this year due to they have families and the risk. They don't want to put their families at risk, and that's totally understandable. So my question, I guess, is why are we still pushing it so hard? If there's players that are deciding that they don't want to play, we've already canceled preseason games. What happens if a bunch of players come up and end up test positive for the virus? So now you've got to quarantine them. Like, are you going to keep cycling through players as players test positive? Like, how is this all going to work? I really feel like there's just too many questions, too many unknowns.
Yeah.
And we're really forcing it right now.
So why should people go with you as that publicist? Because you're not really only a sports publicist. You can be a publicist for anything else, right?
Yes, I do sports and entertainment are the two areas that I focus on and specialize in. So I feel like when you deal with me, when you come with me, I treat you like family. I don't, I'm available all the time to my clients 24/7. They get that right out the gate. They can call me at 3 a.m. with a crisis. They can, text me if they get arrested, they need something kept out of the media. I'm always available. And there's never any judgment, because I have dealt with some interesting situations where I've really been put in a position that I might not necessarily agree with what they're doing, but that's my client and I'm going to support them. So, I'm going to do it anyway.
As that publicist whose job is to keep them kind of out of trouble and, and keep them on whatever good path it could be, especially these days.
Not to keep them out of trouble. It's to make sure that trouble that they get in stays out of the media and nobody else finds out.
True.
But yeah, it's, I feel like what I offer is experience in the fact of similar mindset, because I've been an athlete, so I kind of know how an athlete thinks. I know what things an athlete needs to focus on and have someone else focus on. So they need, like what I tell my clients is, you take care of what you need to do on the field, on the court, whatever. I'll help handle everything. I got you back off the field, off the court, wherever, whatever it is. As long as you're being productive in your craft, then I'm going to make sure that we maximize your exposure as much as we possibly can, and you get as much credit and attention as we can possibly get you, and success.
How many publicists out there do what you do? And then I don't think of, or even think I know of any who have actually done what you've done besides play basketball and ride horses. I mean, how many can really say they played even football? No one that I can think of, right?
Yeah. Which is a benefit to me in the aspect when I, am working with my football player clients. I do know a little bit about the game, so I can have conversations with them. They can vent to me a little bit if they, want to talk about different plays or what's going on the field or something, or how they played or what happened in a game. And I understand what they're saying. Like, we can actually have dialogue, and I know what you're talking about, versus not knowing anything about the sport and kind of just sitting there like, oh, okay, good job.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes you unique. How many women agents are out there? How many women publicists would you say are really into the world of sports who actually played it? Because I think the more you talk about it like that, I think it's very few.
Actually, I think there are quite a few now. There didn't used to be. I feel like it's there's more that are coming out now or deciding to go into that field. My problem is there's a lot of pop-up.
Yeah.
And, I'm not here to knock anybody's hustle, or bring anybody else down, because I think definitely a time when we need to be supporting each other and lifting each other up, especially women, especially Black women. But yeah, there's some that I feel maybe are not that they're in it for the wrong reasons, but maybe they just are in the wrong area. Maybe they shouldn't be sports. Maybe it should be something else.
Right.
But
Yeah. Give you social media links.
Yes. My Instagram is the April Monet, and it's the same for my Twitter as well, April Monet.
What are you looking for when you're scouting someone? What's most important to you? Because they may not know you, they may not be paying attention to you.
The type of person they are. Now, a lot of times, I've been blessed where I haven't really had to go out and look for clients. They've either been referred to me by previous clients or by friends and associates in the business, or just the timing has just been right, and I've happened to meet somebody or come across somebody that needed my assistance. Very rarely, and I have came across some people that I'm like, hey, I feel like I should work with this person, or I feel like I should offer my to this person. That has happened, yeah. And what I look for, their character. I feel like there's someone who deserves the attention that I could possibly, get provided to them. Do I feel like they're really doing something that is beneficial to the community, and to the people around them, that needs to be, acknowledged and put on a pedestal? Or, if they have, it looks like they have a business or they have a brand that they've started and it's not quite getting off the ground, then, I'll offer my services as far as, I can possibly help and assist with, giving you this boost, because it doesn't look like anybody else is helping you out. I really don't I'm not a fan of egos. I'm really not. If you are a great athlete on the field, on the court, it's going to show. People are going to know who you are. You're not going to have to walk around or put on this persona, like you don't have to tell everyone that how good you are, because it's going to show.
Yeah.
And people are going to just go ahead and offer that praise up to you. And it's really irritating when some players are not that productive in their sport, and yet can't understand why they're not, why their face isn't everywhere outside of that sport, in the
What would you
media.
tell some of your clients or some people that might be wanting to go to you what to do now and what not to do now during COVID-19?
Who?
Because it's so easy for people to get in trouble just to have a party. One, it's summer, but two, not the smartest thing to do, right?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, no, I would definitely encourage them not to have parties, not to have, large gatherings, get-togethers. If it happens, make sure that everyone's using proper precautions, wearing masks, using hand sanitizer, washing their hands, staying as far apart from each other as possible. But we're all human, and we all want human connection. We want that physical connection. It's hard sometimes to just not, talk to anyone or be in contact with anyone or be around anyone. That gets difficult. So I would just advise, listen to whatever's going on in your state as far as the rules, whatever your state government has mandated, and use good judgment.
Yeah. Since a lot of people are locked up kind of still, and some people are shutting down, and no one really knows the proper guidelines, depending what county, state, or even country you're in, were you watching any movies during your downtime while you were trying to figure out stuff? And if you were, what were they?
I was trying to watch the movies. The problem was I really didn't feel like there was that many good movies that were out. And, Hollywood shut down. So with the movie theaters being shut down, they weren't putting out a lot of movies. A lot of productions got put on hold. Releases got pushed back. And so, yeah, I tried to watch a few movies, but what I really watched, the more movies that I watched were older movies that have already been out and that are classics, the good go-tos. So that was pretty much it.
Well, yeah, for Netflix, for example, Last Chance You just came up, and
yes.
I actually thought that was a really good series. I mean, and then all of a sudden another series, another episode popped up, season, eight episodes, so I'm going to watch that. Actually, I watched the first one last night, and I'm going to watch that. And it's interesting because you kind of get a different insight into what these kids are like, and maybe their last chance, and the struggles that they really go through, because we've never seen that before.
Yeah, it is. It's one of my favorite series, actually. And my favorite season out of that show is with Coach Jason Brown. I don't know if you saw those episodes yet from Independence.
Yeah, I saw him.
He was one of my favorite coaches. Those were two of my favorite seasons. But yes, I love that show. I really think that it's great that they're doing it. Because there are a lot of kids that are so talented, but they just don't have the grades, or they just can't seem to stay out of trouble, for whatever reason, and they're really hurting themselves because the talent is there, skill is there, everything is there. They check every box of what a great Division I, player would be, possible potential pro player would be. It's just they got to get right.
Yeah.
Off the field. And I appreciate the coaches that do this show, and all the coaches that coach at JUCOs across the country, because I really feel like you have to have a special mentality to be able to handle those kids, because they will test you. They will test you. And I feel like that, my hat goes off to those coaches, because they work very hard, and put up with a lot of crap for a little bit of money. And just like, I don't know if you saw, like, Coach, his coaching staff was living in the dorms.
Yeah.
Right locker room. His family, you know, living in a dorm room right next to the locker room. So yeah, it's a good show. It's a good show, and I'm glad people get to see what's really going on.
Did you get a chance to see The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan series documentary?
Yes.
What was your thoughts on that? Because it was very good.
Michael Jordan is one of my favorite people of all time. So, yes, absolutely loved it. Scottie Pippen was always one of my favorite players. That whole Bulls team from 92 to 98, it's just full of legends. And the stories are great. And I loved how they showed, I loved how they kind of showed Michael in a different light a little bit.
Yeah.
I liked that.
It was good to hear it from his own words and then validating it. Thank goodness the cameras were allowed, because imagine what we would have missed. And this is one reason why it's good to see behind the scenes stuff, because you just never know when to come out. And that was going back in 98. You know, here
Yeah.
2020, you know?
Right. Yep.
So for people who haven't seen you, who want to reach out to you, how do they reach out to you?
You can reach out to me via email at amelitepr@gmail.com. You can visit my website. There's a contact page through there, and that's just amelitepr.com. Or you can, of course, slide in my DMs.
Is that all it takes?
At the slide on in my DMs.
All right, so one last thing. So between now and the end of the year, what are your personal goals, would you say? Because it's going to be very interesting to see how the rest of the year unfolds.
Yeah, I'm hoping the sports comes back and I'm able to take the clients that I have now, gain some new clients, and really be able to work with them throughout the season and be able to do the things that they want to do, especially the ones that, you know, want to do their charity and foundation events and stuff. Usually my clients do holiday events around Thanksgiving and Christmas time with their charities and foundations. So that's going to be we're going to see what that looks like this year, whether we do things virtually, have some virtual events, or if we're able to have small gatherings. We'll see what it looks like. But those are the plans right now. Just taking it day by day.
Well, I was going to ask you, if you have a favorite charity, if you do have one, what might that be and why?
I would say right now, my favorite charity belongs to a NFL free agent at the moment. His name is Brandon Marshall, and he is one of the players that in 2016, when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, Brandon used to be college teammates with Kaepernick, and he supported him and took a knee as well. In doing so, he lost a lot of endorsements and sponsorships. And he has a foundation called the Williams Marshall Cares Foundation, and they mentor at-risk youth and teens, and he does a lot with them, a lot. And he has always been since 2016 fighting for social injustice and standing up for the Black Lives Matter movement, and doing a lot of good work in his community and giving back. And he doesn't care what other people think about it or think about him for standing up for what he believes in. And that would be my foundation. I actually just made a donation to that foundation not too long ago. And that would be my favorite one, the Williams Marshall Cares Foundation.
All right. So with that, got any final words for any of those soon-to-be athletes? Because this is going to be really tricky, especially for the ones coming out of high school, providing there's a high school. I'm good at predicting things and I can't even tell you what might happen. Any words of suggestion? Because it's hard to guess, isn't it?
It's very hard to guess. I know they're looking at canceling a lot of the college sports for the fall. So I'm sure if they do that, high school is going to be canceled. And, you know, there are a lot of high schools that aren't even going back to physically being in the classroom anyway. They're doing online learning. So if they're doing online learning, then it's really hard to have physical, you know, sports practices and games and events. So it's not looking good. Like I said, my suggestion is just we just need to go ahead and give up, I guess, on the rest of this year and focus on getting everything under control and putting a solid plan together for next year. And, you know, whether that's planning for the worst and the virus is still around and we need to figure out how we're going to navigate in dealing with this, or hopefully things are back to normal. But whatever it is, we need to just make sure we have a solid plan in place for all sports, all levels, all across the board, so that we know what we're doing and the safest way to do it.
All right, social media links one last time.
Social media links, Instagram at the April Monet and Twitter at April Monet.
All right, so for April, this is Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, WomenOnTV.tv, IT247 out of Franklin, Tennessee, and the Women's Broadcast TV Network. This is just the first of this. We'll be talking about sports, or the lack of, which will be really interesting to talk about, because you just never know what's going to happen, and no one really does know what's going to happen. So for that, if you see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours, because the world needs it, and we will see you next week.